All right, so today we're going to be reading A Bad Case of the Stripes. But before we start reading this, I want to... Have you ever made something with your mom, like when you cook dinner? Or have you seen your mom use a recipe?
Help.
You've helped? Like, have you baked a cake before? And you know, when you first bake the cake, you have to turn the oven on. You have to know what you need to do. You need to know what you need. You need to know what you're going to do in the middle and what you're going to do at the end. So when you start making the cake, you turn the oven on and you get all your ingredients together. And then you put one ingredient in at a time. Then you mix it all up. And then once it's mixed up, where do you put it?
The oven.
In the oven. And then it cooks. And when it's done, what do you do? Take it out of the oven. And what do you do?
Cool.
Let it cool. And then what do you put on top of a cake?
Icing.
So you know what you have to do at the beginning, and what you do in the middle, and what you do at the end. Very good. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about. So we're going to be talking about the beginning, the middle, and the end of the book, okay?
Yeah, we were talking about that.
There you go. Okay, so what do you think A Bad Case of the Stripes might be about? Can you make a prediction?
Mm-hmm.
By the cover of the book, what do you think?
She's going to get the bad case of stripes.
Yeah, she's going to get a bad case of the stripes. Okay, so we're going to start reading it. But while I'm reading it, I want you to think about what's happening at the beginning, what's happening in the middle, and what happens at the end, okay? All right. Camilla Cream loved lima beans, but she never ate them. All her friends hated lima beans, and she wanted to fit in. Camilla always worried about what other people thought of her. Today she was fretting even more than usual. It was the first day of school, and she couldn't decide what to wear. There were so many people to impress. She tried on 42 outfits. Let me start over that. She tried on 42 outfits, but none of them seemed quite right. She put on a pretty red dress and looked in the mirror, then screamed. That's a lot of clothes, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like 42.
Her mother ran into the room, and she screamed too. "Oh, my heavens," she cried. "You're completely covered with stripes." This was certainly true. Camilla was striped from head to toe. She looked like a rainbow. Mrs. Cream felt Camilla's forehead. "Do you feel all right?" she asked. "I feel fine," Camilla answered, "but just look at me." "You get back in bed this instant," her mother ordered. "You're not going to school today." Camilla was relieved. She didn't want to miss the first day of school, but she was afraid the other kids of what they would say. And she had no idea what to wear with those crazy stripes.
A striped dress.
Yeah. A striped dress, that would be a good idea. Then she'd be all striped. That afternoon, Dr. Bumble came to examine Camilla. "Most extraordinary," he exclaimed. "I've never seen anything like it. Are you having any coughing, sneezing, runny nose, aches, pains, chills, hot flashes, dizziness, drowsiness, shortness of breath, or uncontrollable twitching?" "No," Camilla told him. "I feel fine." "Well then," Dr. Bumble said, turning to Miss Cream, "I don't see any reason why she couldn't go to school tomorrow. Here's some ointment. That should help clear up all those stripes in a few days. If it doesn't, you know where to reach me." And off he went. When you go to a doctor, do they ask you a lot of questions like that when you're sick? They usually ask me. The next day was a disaster. Everyone at school laughed at Camilla. They called her Camilla Crayon and Night of the Living Lollipop. She tried her best to act as if everything were normal. But when the class said the Pledge of Allegiance, her stripes turned red, white, and blue, and she broke out in stars. That would be pretty cool. Yeah. The other kids thought this was great. One yelled out, "Let's see some purple polka dots." Sure enough, Camilla turned all purple polka dotty. Someone else shouted, "Checkerboard," and a pattern of squares covered her skin. Soon everyone was calling out different shapes and colors, and poor Camilla was changing faster than you can change channels on TV. That wasn't very nice.
Nope.
That night, Mr. Harms, the school principal, called. "I'm sorry, Miss Cream," he said. "I'm going to have to ask you to keep Camilla home from school. She's just too much of a distraction. And I've been getting calls from other parents. They're afraid those stripes may be contagious." Camilla was so embarrassed, she couldn't even believe that 2 days ago everyone liked her. Now nobody wanted to be in the same room with her. Her father tried to make her feel better. "Is there anything I can get you, sweetheart?" he asked. "No, thank you," sighed Camilla. What she really wanted was a nice plate of lima beans, but she had been laughed at enough for one day.
Just eat them. It doesn't matter.
That night, Camilla took her medicine. It was awful. When she woke up the next morning, she did feel different. But when she got dressed, her clothes didn't fit right. She looked in the mirror, and there, staring back at her, was a giant multicolored pill with her face on it.
Oh, so she looks like a pill.
Yeah, because she had to take that medicine. Dr. Bumble rushed over as soon as Mrs. Cream called. But this time, instead of the specialist, he brought the experts. Dr. Gourd and Dr. Mellon were the finest scientific minds in the land. Once again, Camilla was poked and prodded, looked at and listened to. The experts wrote down lots of numbers. Then they huddled together and whispered. Dr. Gourd finally spoke. "It might be a virus," he announced with authority. Suddenly, fuzzy little virus balls appeared all over Camilla. Does it look like anything they say ends up happening to her? "Or possibly some kind of bacteria," said Mr. Mellon. "Out popped squiggly little bacteria tails. Or it could be a fungus," added Dr. Gourd. Instantly, Camilla was covered with different colored fungus blotches. The experts looked at Camilla and then at each other. "We need to get over these numbers again and back at the lab," Dr. Gourd explained. "We'll call you when we know something." But the experts didn't have a clue, much less a cure.
Is that the bacteria?
Those are the funguses. The bacterias are the squiggly things. By now, the TV news had found out about Camilla. Reporters from every channel were outside of her house telling the story of the bizarre case of the incredible changing kid. Soon a huge crowd was camped out on the front lawn.
So that's all.
They're all there.
They're all knocking on the door.
Yeah. They just want to see her. Do you think you would go outside and show them?
No.
It's not
It
fun.
looks like that.
She almost looks like a cat in a tree and all kind of things. Their creams were swamped with all kind of remedies from psychologists, allergists, herbalists, nutritionists, physics, an old medicine man, a guru, and even a veterinarian. Each so-called cure only added to poor Camilla's strange appearance until it was hard to even recognize her. She sprouted roots and berries and crystals and feathers and a long furry tail, but nothing worked. Poor thing. Oh my goodness. One day, a woman who called herself an environmental therapist claimed she could cure Camilla. "Close your eyes," she said. "Breathe deeply and become one with your room." "I wish you hadn't said that," Camilla groaned. Slowly, she started to melt into the walls of her room. Her bed became her mouth, her nose was a dresser, and 2 paintings with her eyes.
That's a girl.
Oh, yeah, I see it now. The therapist screamed and ran from the house. "What are we going to do?" said Miss Cream. "It just keeps getting worse and worse." She began to sob. What? But wait. At that moment, Mr. Cream heard a quiet little knock at the front door. He opened it, and there stood an old woman who was just as plump and sweet as a strawberry. "Excuse me," she said brightly, "but I think I can help." Doesn't she look so sweet? She went into Camilla's room and looked around. "My goodness," she said with a shake of her head. "What have we here is a bad case of stripes. One of the worst I've ever seen." She pulled a container of a small green beans from her bag. "Here," she said, "this might do the trick." "Are those magic beans?" asked Mrs. Cream. "Oh my, no," replied the kind old woman. "There's no such thing. These are just plain old lima beans." "I'll bet you'd like some, wouldn't you?" she asked Camilla. Camilla wanted a big heaping plateful of lima beans, more than just about anything, but she was still afraid to admit it. Yuck, she said. No one likes lima beans, especially me. Oh dear, the old woman said sadly. I guess I was wrong about you. She put the beans back in her bag and started toward the door. Camilla watched the old woman walk away. Those beans would taste so good right now. And being laughed at for eating them was nothing compared to what she'd been going through. She finally couldn't stand it. Wait, she cried. The truth is, I really love lima beans. I thought so, the old woman said with a smile. She took a handful of beans and popped them into Camilla's mouth. Said Camilla.
That was,
Suddenly, the branches, feathers, and squiggly tails began to disappear. Then the whole room swirled around. When it stopped, there stood Camilla, and everything was back to normal. I'm cured, she shouted. Yes, said the old woman. I knew the real you was in there somewhere. She patted Camilla on the head. Then she went outside and vanished into the crowd.
just because she didn't eat any lima beans because she didn't want anybody to know.
That's exactly it. Afterward, Camilla wasn't quite the same. Some of the kids at the school said she was weird, but she didn't care a bit. She ate all the lima beans she wanted, and she never had even a touch of stripes again.
Because you're doing what not everybody said.
Yeah. Oh, she has a stripe bow, yeah. So what do you think the moral of the story is? Why do you think what lesson did we learn from reading this?
To be yourself.
To be yourself. It's okay to be different. You don't have to be like everybody. Because when you aren't yourself, you lose sight of who you are. Just kind of like she lost sight of who she was, and she turned into this. She turned into a tree cat crystal feather bacteria. Yep. All right, so when we predicted what we thought the story was going to be about, was your prediction right?
Kind of.
Yeah, it was right. You said that she was going to get a bad case of the stripes. That's the title of the book, but she
didn't just get stripes.
This is
She
true.
got different stuff.
Yeah, she
But
did.
we didn't read this page. And
Did we?
no.
Oh, did I skip a page on accident?
Yes.
Look, I'll read it now. That was after Dr. Gordon,
She's just reading.
that
the
night
book.
Mr.
Reading
Holmes
the
called the
book.
principal. All right, we gotta do this. So go in the other room for right now.
What are you doing?
Shh. All right, let's see. He said, this was after the principal called and said that she was not allowed to come back. Well, yes, I see, Dr. Bumble mumbled when Mr. Cream phoned the next day. I think I'd better bring in a specialist. We'll be right over. About an hour later, Dr. Bumble arrived with 4 people in long white coats. He introduced them to the Creams. This is Dr. Group, Dr. Sponge, Dr. Cricket, and Dr. Young. Then the specialist went to work on Camilla. They squeezed and jabbed and tapped and tested. It was very uncomfortable. Well, it's not the mumps, concluded Dr. Group, or the measles, said Dr. Sponge. Definitely not the chicken pox. But, put in Dr. Cricket. Or a sunburn, said Dr. Young. Try these, said the specialist. They each handed her a bottle filled with different colored pills. Take one of each before bed, said Dr. Group. Then they filed out the door and followed by Dr. Bumble. That's when she turned into the pill.
Yeah. Because they didn't give us any medicine.
They didn't say one thing or another. They gave her a bunch of medicine. Okay. So what we're going to do first is we're going to do this. I have this chart for you, and you're going to fill in beginning, middle, and end. And what I want you to do is I want you to, I'm going to show the camera so they see what we're doing. Beginning, middle, and end. So I want you to just draw a picture of the beginning. So what was happening at the beginning of the story? When she had just, what did she just do? And they just moved to a new town, and she was she was moving to a new school, right?
Yeah.
And she was nervous.
She so she needed to get a new dress, and then when she screamed, she saw that.
So in the beginning, she was trying to figure out what she was going to wear to school. And then all of a sudden she had stripes. So then what happened in the middle? The whole middle of the book, what were they trying to do?
Figure out what was wrong.
They were trying to figure out what was wrong with her. So there were lots of different people that came in to try to check her, and they were poking and prodding at her.
Yeah.
And they had all kind of different. There's some crayons.
I remember he did it because I remember when we read it in the Smith class before.
Yeah.
Not your class. And we had to read this, and because this, the experts, specialists, experts.
So in the middle, they were trying to figure out what was wrong. So they had all the different doctors came in, and they were trying to figure out, and they had all the specialists and experts. And then at the end, what happened?
She got cured.
She got cured. And why did she get cured? What was it as simple as?
Just being yourself.
Just being yourself. All right. So just draw a picture that will represent what happened in the beginning. So you could draw a picture of Camilla, and you could put stripes on her because that's when she first got her stripes at the beginning. And in the middle, you could draw a picture of her. Just put whatever you want. You could draw. You can use markers.
But it's so bad.
It's okay. You can, because the other side you draw on this part. So you can draw right here. You can use
I
markers.
can't color that.
You can later. We'll do this first, and then the other side, and then you can color it. Did you want a crayon? Or, oh, you want a marker. That's right.
I'll just use yellow.
There you go. What?
It doesn't even write.
Is it dried out? Here's another yellow.
This one will probably work.
It probably will.
Yep.
Does it work?
With yellow string.
There you go. So kind of like a recipe, you have to know what to do at the beginning. We have to know what happened at the beginning. We have to know what to do in the middle. And that's to put all the ingredients in. You have to know what happened in the middle of the book. And that was when all the different doctors came in. And then you have to know what happens at the end. And that's when she gets better. And that's when you put the icing on the cake.
You put icing on her.
Icing on her.
It's kind of funny.
That's pretty good.
And you might get out the lines because these markers aren't.
Yeah, they're kind of dried out.
Did I already use this time? That's a pretty color.
Mm-hmm.
Seafoam green.
I like that color.
That's a cute color. I'm just going to move quick.
There you go. That's right. Perfect. All right, and in the middle, they had all the different doctors, so you could draw like.
It doesn't bleed.
It's okay, we're cool. So you could draw her. You could draw her laying in bed with doctors around her.
They're thinking doctor. So her bed was pink.
Very observant.
So I gotta do a pink bed.
I didn't even notice that.
You didn't notice that her mouth was pink?
Her bed.
Mm-hmm. Her mouth.
Her mouth. Oh, when she turned into the room. There you go.
And then I'm just doing stripes like it's her. Stripes, stripes, stripes.
Oh, perfect. Did you have a good day at school today?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So far, it's been a good day. Oh.
I was gonna do it like that. Yeah.
Still
I'm
kind of
using the same color.
There you go. There's one doctor.
Poke, poke.
Very good.
Nah, that's the best I can draw people. Unless they do stick man. 1, 2, 3. There was 4.
Perfect. All right, and then what happened at the end?
King.
She was cured. So you could draw her all happy because she's all cured. She has no more stripes. Perfect. Okay, so then you can color this afterward. Now on the back, we have a bad case of the character's stripes.
Oh, so I do the characters that she turned into?
You could do that. Were there 4 different characters she turned into? She turned into the pill bottle. She first turned into Stripes, then the pill bottle, and then she turned into that fungus plant with a tail. And then...
This was second.
Oh, who was that? It might be your mom looking for you. And then...
oil change.
Oh, okay. We're going to do... So we'll do Camilla. We can do her mom, her dad, and then the little lady that cured her.
Her mom and dad.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so...
All the stripes I want.
So in other lessons that you've learned in your classroom, y'all talked about how to pick out the characters of the story, the main character, the setting, and the plot. And a setting is where it takes place.
That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And the characters are the people.
The characters are the people, and then you have a solution. But on this, first we're going to talk about the different characters. So let me see. We'll talk about...
What if I'm talking too low and you can't see me?
We'll put Camilla here.
They can't hear me.
I think they'll be able to hear you. We'll put Camilla, then we'll put her mom here. We could talk about lots of the characters in the book, right? Because what characters were in this book? You had...
Crazy Camilla's and stuff.
Camilla. What about all the students in the school?
Yeah.
What was the little old lady's name? Do you remember?
It didn't tell you. It just said little old lady.
We'll put old lady right here. They had all different doctors.
Sorry.
They had the principal. Who else did they have?
Mom.
The mom, the dad, all the news reporters.
Yeah, and all the people outside.
And all the people outside. So there were lots and lots of people. So we're going to write words that describe. So do you know what you can call words that describe people in a story?
No.
Or if I said that you're always happy and you're smiling and you're nice and you're characteristics of somebody. The traits, characteristics. All right. So we're going to write down different characteristics of these people. So for Camilla, what could we put? When she got the stripes, do you think she was excited? Do you think she was scared? Was she scared to be herself? You can put that.
Wait, did I write?
Yeah, you can write. You can just write words that explain her. That way it takes a little easier. If you don't know how to spell it, I'll put it on this paper. Or you can just spell it the best you can. Oh, you don't want to write? Would you rather draw?
I can draw her sad.
Yeah, you can draw a picture of what and then I'll put underneath it what we were meaning.
I'm going to draw it.
She was sad.
Stripes, stripes, stripes. Her tongue.
There you go. And then what about her mom and dad? How could we describe them? How do you think they reacted? Scared? So we could say the mom was scared. Why do you think she was scared?
Because she didn't know what was happening to her child.
Yeah, she didn't know what was happening to her girl, her little baby. Maybe she's not the baby. Maybe Camilla had siblings, but it didn't talk about siblings. So what was happening to her daughter?
Don't know. She wasn't being herself.
Yeah, she just wasn't being herself. Because that's the moral of the story, right? To always what?
Be yourself.
Always be yourself.
I just got that. The 5th time someone learned it to me.
And you just understood what the moral of the story was?
Yes.
See, you learn something new every time.
gets approval.
And what do you think the dad, how he felt? Do you think he was
Same as mom.
same as the mom? Do you think that maybe he, a little bit more than the mom, he was anxious to try to figure out what was wrong?
Kinda.
Kinda. Maybe they both were. Oh, I'll throw it away afterward. All right, and then what about the little old lady?
Helpful.
Helpful. That's really good. Yeah, she was extremely helpful. Was she kind?
Yes.
She was helpful and she was kind.
What color hair should I give her?
I think we have gray. You can give her gray hair. Put a crayon. Oh, there you go. Okay, and so I'm gonna put. What did we say for Camilla? Scared or
Sad.
sad. And then the mom and dad were scared. Oh, I almost made that an E. Scared. And what did we say the old lady was? Helpful?
Helpful and kind.
And kind.
Why do you keep having to do these?
It's for school.
Wait, you do school in the kids' school?
That's why we do these. Okay, so
They're funny.
all together, after we've read the whole book, we've talked about, what did we talk about first?
The beginning, the middle, and the end.
And we learned how to pick out parts of the book that were the beginning and what happened at the beginning. And then we had to think about, well, what happened in the middle and then what happened at the end. And then what else did we talk about on the other side?
The character.
The characters, and we named different what? Characteristics of the characters. So if we're not thinking of the book, can you name characteristics about yourself? Things about you. Things that describe you. You don't know? Are you helpful?
Yes.
Are you kind? Are you playful? Do you like to play? Kinda. You play with your dogs, don't you? Yeah. Do you get nervous sometimes? Sometimes, not very often. Are you outgoing? Outgoing. So like if Miss Appel asks you something in class and some people sit there and they don't want to say the answer, do you say, oh, I'll answer?
I don't blur, but I do.
But you're outgoing, so you'll want to tell them that you know the answer. If you're playing with all your friends, do you go get your friends and say, oh, if they're not playing with you, do you ask them if they want to come play with y'all? And you're kind and sweet. Can you think of anything else that describes you?
No.
Another word? No? No more? What about, can you think of a word that describes the kids in this book at the school?
Mean.
Mean. They weren't very nice to her. What about the news reporters? What do you call somebody that's trying to get in somebody else's business? They're gossiping. What else can you call them? They're being what?
Nosy.
Nosy.
You're pointing to your nose.
I was trying to give you a hint.
I wasn't even looking at you until I actually turned to say it.
And then you saw. What about all the people that came to check up on her? All the different specialists.
And experts. Confused?
They were very confused. Yeah, that's a good one. Were they helpful? Kinda. They weren't kind of helpful.
They were trying
to be helpful because they came in and they were trying to help and then they just couldn't figure out what it was. So first, what happened? Let's retell the story real quick before we end this.
First, she saw that she turned into a striped girl.
Very good.
And all the doctors came and saw her.
And then
in the end, she was all cured.
Very good. So we did beginning, middle, and end. Then we talked about characteristics of some of the characters in the books. And then just now we were able to talk about characteristics of you, characteristics of the kids, characteristics of the experts and specialists. Oh, we did the little old lady on here. And then the news reporters. So do you feel good about this? About talking about characteristics and beginning, middle, and end?
Kind of.
Kind of. All right. Well, that's it for today. You can keep this and color on it. Let me show them what you put on this side. I'll take a picture of it too. We have characters in the beginning, middle, and end. And then that side. All right.
Thank you for my artwork.
You're